Every year, over 100 million pounds of gummy bears are consumed around the world. That's billions of tiny, chewy, fruit-flavored bears, eaten in movie theaters, packed in lunchboxes, and grabbed by the handful from candy bowls everywhere. But have you ever stopped to wonder what actually goes into making one? Because behind that simple little bear is a surprisingly fascinating manufacturing process, one that involves massive industrial kettles, precision molds, and a lot more science than you'd expect. Today, we're going inside the factory to find out exactly how gummy bears are made, from raw ingredients, all the way to the bag on your shelf. Before we get to the factory, let's go back to where it all started. It's 1920. Bonn, Germany. A candy maker named Hans Riegel has just started a small confectionery company out of his home, with nothing but a copper kettle, a marble slab, and a big idea. He called his company Haribo, a name made from the first two letters of his name and his city. Hans Riegel, Bonn. 2 years later, Hans was inspired by the train dancing bears he saw at street festivals across Europe. He decided to create a fruit-flavored, bear-shaped candy, and called it the Tanzbar, the dancing bear. It was a hit. Over the following decades, the recipe was refined, the bears got smaller and chewier, and Haribo expanded across Europe. When gummy bears finally reached American shelves in the 1980s, they became an instant sensation. Today, Haribo alone produces over 100 million gummy bears every single day. And they're not the only ones, but the core process has remained surprisingly similar to what Hans started over a century ago. So what actually goes into a gummy bear? Let's break down the ingredients. First, sugar. Sugar is the backbone of every gummy bear. It provides sweetness and helps give the candy its structure. Factories use it by the ton, literally. Second, glucose syrup. A thick, sweet syrup made from starch, usually corn or wheat. It works alongside sugar to control the texture, prevent crystallization, and give gummy bears that smooth, slightly glossy finish. Third, and most important, gelatin. This is what makes a gummy bear chewy. Gelatin is a protein derived from animal collagen, typically from pork or beef. When dissolved in hot liquid and then cooled, it forms a flexible, elastic gel. Without gelatin, you just have hard candy. This is also why traditional gummy bears are not vegan, though some manufacturers now use plant-based alternatives like pectin. Fourth, water, used to dissolve everything, with most of it evaporating during cooking. Fifth, fruit juice or flavoring. This is where the color and flavor come in. Each color gets its own distinct taste: red for raspberry or cherry, green for apple, yellow for lemon, and orange for, well, orange. Sixth, citric acid. That slight tartness you taste? That's citric acid, balancing the sweetness and brightening the fruit flavors. And finally, food coloring, either synthetic or from natural sources like beet juice and turmeric. Now that we have our ingredients, it's time to cook. The process starts in massive industrial kettles, some capable of holding thousands of liters at a time. First, water is heated inside the kettle. Then the gelatin is added and stirred until it fully dissolves. This has to be done carefully. If the temperature gets too high, the gelatin breaks down and loses its ability to set. Next, the sugar and glucose syrup are added, and the mixture is stirred continuously as it heats, combining everything into a thick, uniform liquid. At this stage, the mixture is essentially a clear, flavorless, golden syrup. No color, no taste, just structure. Then comes the fun part. The base is divided into separate batches, one for each flavor. Each batch gets its own precise combination of fruit flavoring, food coloring, and citric acid. The result? A series of vivid, sweet-smelling liquids, bright red, deep green, sunny yellow, each one destined for a different bear. Quality control technicians test every batch for flavor intensity, pH balance, and consistency before it moves on. Here's where things get really interesting, and where the gummy bear gets its shape. Traditional gummy bear manufacturing uses a process called starch molding, and it's been the industry standard for well over a century. It works like this. Large flat trays are filled with a fine, dry cornstarch powder. A stamping board embedded with hundreds of tiny bear-shaped impressions is pressed into the starch, leaving behind perfectly shaped cavities. These starch trays act as the molds. Next, a machine called a depositor moves along the trays, injecting precise amounts of liquid gummy mixture into each cavity, red bears in one row, green in another. Once the trays are full, they're moved into a conditioning room, a temperature and humidity-controlled chamber where the bears will sit and set. This is where the gelatin does its work. Over the next 24 to 48 hours, the mixture slowly cools and firms up. The water evaporates. The gelatin network tightens, and those tiny liquid blobs transform into firm, chewy, perfectly shaped gummy bears. After setting, the trays are flipped and tumbled, the starch pours out, and hundreds of little bears fall free. The starch is collected, sifted, and reused. Nothing goes to waste. At this point, the gummy bears are fully formed, but they're not quite ready for the bag. They go through one more important step, finishing. The bears are loaded into large rotating drums, where they're tumbled with a thin coating of beeswax, carnauba wax, or a mix of both. This coating does three important things. It gives the bears their signature glossy shine. It keeps them from sticking together, and it locks in moisture, extending their shelf life. From the drums, the bears move on to conveyor belts, where cameras and sensors perform automated quality checks, scanning for bears that are malformed, too small, fused together, or the wrong color. Any rejects are pulled from the line. The approved bears are weighed and sorted, and different flavors are combined in just the right ratios, because nobody wants a bag of all yellow gummy bears. The packaging process is almost entirely automated. High-speed filling machines measure out precise weights of gummy bears, whether it's a 5-ounce snack bag or a 5-pound party bag, and pour them into pre-formed packaging. The bags are heat-sealed, labeled, and sorted into boxes. From there, the boxes are stacked onto pallets by robotic arms and loaded into temperature-controlled trucks for distribution. Within days, those gummy bears that started as raw sugar and gelatin are sitting on store shelves around the world, ready to be grabbed by the handful. From a German candy maker's kitchen in the 1920s to factories producing hundreds of millions of bears every single day, the gummy bear has had quite a journey. And now, the next time you reach into a bag, you'll know exactly what went into making that tiny, chewy, satisfying little bear. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe. We break down how everyday things are made every single week. And drop a comment below. Which product should we cover next? See you in the next one.